have that Comeback Kid shirt, which is a
dude.
sick shirt.
I thought about it this morning. I was like, there's a chance Jesse's gonna be wearing this shirt.
A very good chance. Yeah, I think
That
I
would have
wore it
been
last
great.
episode. Oh, it'd be
Nice.
That would
so
have been great
funny.
if you were. I know. Yeah, those guys, Comeback Kid is headlining Within These Walls here in Mesa in September. So maybe if they have that shirt, I'll pick it up
There
and
you
then
go,
we
dude.
can just all
I'll have to come back on another episode.
Exactly. Awesome. What's up, everyone?
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Dad to Mosh. This is like episode 20 or something, I
20.
think.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
It's a
It
huge
is.
deal.
Yeah, we're getting up there. And this week we've got another local friend of mine, James, from down here in the San Diego area. Welcome, James.
Thanks, dudes. I saw that on your. I was looking at the episode list. I was like, dang, you guys are up to 20. That's felt super fast
It has.
from noticing like that, just seeing the clips and then talking to you, Jesse, about what you guys are doing. And then I was like, oh, that's cool. They got this like podcast they're starting. And I'm like, wait, you guys are 20 episodes into this. That's a ton.
Yeah.
I think I saw something the other day where like most podcasts make it to like, I can't remember if it was 5 or 10, episodes. So making it to 20, but it's also like, what does that even mean? It's like you could have like 2 people listening and still
totally.
but whatever, we
Yeah.
always say, whatever. It's as long as we're having fun with it, we'll keep doing it for sure. But
Yeah, that's what's been really cool about this is, so much of this has been about like adult men and fathers like having friends and like having an outlet to talk about. And that's exactly what it's given me and Nate. It's just like a chance to like talk about like shows that we've got coming up, like new bands that we're finding it's like if we just took a weekly conversation, we just recorded and put it on the internet. So it's been really organic, really cool.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I was going to the gym with my wife this morning and I was listening to the new Terror album and I was like talking her ear off about it. And she's like, look, I know you've got the podcast. I know you love this stuff. She's like, we can talk about something else. I was like, okay, fine. I'll talk to James and Jesse about the album and fine.
Yeah. So funny.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
But Jesse, we were just talking about you and cruises.
Yes.
So perfect timing. Tell us about your exciting news in the cruise world.
Well, okay, so I was listening to last week's episode, making clips, and last week I was saying I have to figure out a way to get on this boat. Well, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I figured out a way to get on this boat. It turns out if you just pay money, you can actually get on these things.
Crazy.
So, no, I got on like the pre-sale list. My day came up. They gave you this like small window. And so I started panic texting everybody I knew, including both of you, of like, hey, I just need to go to this. Is anybody going? So I did end up convincing Spencer to go.
Yep.
So Spencer got a ticket. You guys met him at Furnace Fest.
Yep.
And we're going.
Awesome.
So probably a horrible financial decision, but as I mentioned last week, it's like my 2 very favorite things. I love cruising. I just got off a cruise with the family 2 weeks ago. I love going to shows, obviously, so it doesn't get any better. I'm stoked about the lineup. So we're going to make it work. We'll figure it out.
Bro, you sent us in our group chat with the 4 of us, sent us that picture of the beds, and I was just like dying thinking about like the 4 of us, giant adult men, basically like sleeping in a pillow fort together.
Like, maybe we could like clip it in here, add it in here or something. But it's like, imagine the tiniest little room. And there's 3 beds on the bottom and 1 folded down from the top. And then like there's like my favorite part is like the folded towel animal right in the middle.
Yes. So great. Well, I was like, does Spencer even fit? Like, is Spencer just gonna have to like crouch down the whole time? But dude, you guys will have a blast. You'll have to get some content while you're there. Send us some footage, post some footage from the high seas.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty excited. It's
crazy.
Sold out already too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I mean, the tickets, like, I get it. It's a cruise. You're basically going to a festival on a cruise. So I get it. Tickets are, it's a decent chunk of change. And the fact that that's sold out is pretty wild. That's pretty impressive.
Well, it's also that it sold out like the first wave.
Yeah,
Like they didn't
yeah,
even
Exactly.
nobody else even got a chance. That's what I think was so surprising was the price and the fact that people jumped on it, but that it was so quick.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. So we've got a whole year. I mean, it's like I think it's April 28th of 2027. So it's like a year from this weekend. We
Yeah,
got a lot
yeah.
of time to think about it, figure it out, pay it off. But
That's
yeah,
right,
I'm
that's
really
right,
excited
yeah.
about it.
Yeah. That's kinda nice when you do big trips like that, and by the time you actually get to it, it's all paid off, so you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
whatever, I'm not too worried about it." I don't know why I had this thought yesterday too, and I was thinking about the cruise, I was like, "Okay, that's a year out." I was like, what if a band breaks up before then?" That's just like the pressure is on you as a band, like, you gotta stay together,
Yeah.
you can't break
Figure it
up
out.
because
Yeah.
you've got the big old boat cruise coming up. Um, no, that's awesome, man,
Funny, dude.
that should be a ton of fun. I, uh I talked last week about, taking my son to the Suns game, the Suns and Warriors game, which the Suns won, which was amazing. The streak continues. Every time I take my oldest to a Suns Warriors game, the Suns win, and he's a
That's
Warriors
awesome.
fan. So, but now they're just getting miserably slaughtered in the playoffs by the Thunder, which I anticipated happening. But that's all right. Um,
Nate,
I'm
was your son like a fan before like you like is he a fan like to spite you or is this just like he just has grown out of like a
He's always been a Steph Curry fan, so
okay. Yeah,
that's why he's been a fan of the Warriors,
I gotcha.
forever,
Yeah.
and I liked the Suns, even before we moved to, Phoenix, I was
Yeah.
a fan of the Suns, and so, it's been a good rivalry. I told him I have to take him at some point, I'll take him to, like, a Golden State, like, home
Yeah.
game someday so he doesn't have to feel so isolated.
In the arena.
The biggest thing for me right now, as a Raiders fan, is Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, dude. It's
I'm
a
so
big day.
stoked. This is
Big
like
day.
the first time and I don't remember how long since like John Gruden left and went to coach the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is like the first time in decades that I feel like every single thing I want the Raiders to do, they're doing in
Hmm.
the offseason. So I'm like, hopefully this means something because
Yeah.
we're overdue for a winning season for sure.
It's been some time for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
James, one of the funny things about when people grow up in Montana, I'm going to pick on Montana a little bit here,
Yeah.
but, I grew up in California. And so like everyone has like California teams and,
Right.
sometimes you get some weird, like 49er fans growing up in SoCal and then, you've got like, but then you can like choose, you've got like Ducks and you've got all these teams and then you've got teams that have left. Like there's a lot of like Rams fans, but like
Yeah.
LA Rams fans, and then they've come back. But you go
Hmm.
to Montana, for sports, it's Wild West. It's like
It
you
is.
grow up and like whoever's good when you're a kid
Yeah.
is who your team becomes, and you're like die hard. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I met so many Packer fans. There's a little bit of like regional, so like Seahawks. There you got some
Sure.
people like the Seahawks, some people like the Broncos, but
Broncos.
there's
Yeah.
there's not even like a majority. It's
No.
all over the place. And then you've
Yep.
got 49er fans because when the 49ers were good, and
We're good, right? Yeah.
you got these like I don't know. You just have like such random all over. I liked the logo.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
that city on vacation
Yep.
one
Yep.
time,
Yep.
and they won't like
Your
pick
Pop
one
Warner
city
team was that
either.
team.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
too. Is like, it's like sometimes it's like, oh, I'm a New York fan. You like the Yankees, you like the
Yeah.
Mets, you like it's like you have that city. But in Montana, it's like, oh, I like Seattle for baseball. I like
Yeah.
Florida for football. I like,
Yeah.
it's like
Oh,
all over the place. It's
100%.
crazy.
Well, and that's like growing up in Montana, that's how you knew. Like if somebody like and it was exactly the same thing. I liked the Raiders because I liked, the whole like hip hop culture with it. I
Yeah.
liked,
The
how like
black hole.
nasty the
Yeah.
black hole. I loved all of that. And then like I loved Jerry Rice. Like Jerry Rice is my favorite player of all time. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
legendary with the 49ers, but then, he finished his career with the Raiders and that just sealed the deal for me. But yeah, when you in Montana, if you meet somebody and you're like, "What's your favorite team?" And they're like, "Oh, the Broncos." It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. You've been watching football for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
You just picked
You
a
just
team
know
that's
when were
close
they
to
You
you."
good.
pinpoint when they became a fan. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where it was like, "Why
Yeah.
do you like the Raiders? They sucked." It's like, "Well, they didn't. Like they were good
They
when I
lured
first
me
started
in.
cheering for them." So Yeah, it's funny, and now I'm just, like, stuck, right? Like and that's the funny thing in Arizona is, like, nobody's a Cardinals fan in Arizona, like, that's
Yeah.
but even, like, even Arizona
Yeah,
natives aren't Cardinals fans here, so, Arizona's
dude.
brutal for
Yeah.
sports, um, but
James, what about you? How was your weekend?
yeah.
Dude, it was great,
Or your
man.
week, I guess.
Great week. Yeah, just getting stuff ready at work and keeping things moving. I'm a pastor at a church, and so we just had like a big group signups, trying to get people kind of connected into small groups and stuff, kind of coming off Easter. I'm actually preaching this weekend, so just been working on a lot of
Nice.
stuff, kind of prepping for that. And then it's fun. Like it's funny. It's been funny just kind of thinking through the pod and like Jesse was like, "Hey man, there's a couple things like little homework tidbits." So like I've just been combing through like years of like of all sorts of heavy stuff of like, man,
Nice.
what is going to define my time on the podcast? Like, what is the song?
Yes.
And so it's been really fun. But yeah, dude, it's been a good week. It was funny, Nate, I asked about your son because my son used to do that a little bit when he was little. Like he would, whatever team I was rooting for, he would just choose the other team to spite me because he thought it was
Yep,
funny. He's like,
yep.
Dad, who do you want to win this game? And I'd just tell him, and he's like, go the other team.
Such a punk.
I was like, come on, dude.
My middle son will do that. He is a Bobcats fan because I went to University of Montana. That's like the
Yeah.
biggest sin you can possibly have. Like it's
That is
just
pretty bad, yeah.
it's whatever is the worst, whatever is the arch rival, I'm gonna
Yeah.
ride for
Yeah.
them. Yeah. And his brother.
My
And like his oldest brother is like loyal, the oldest kid. He's like whatever I like, he likes, and so then
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
like
yeah.
despite his brother, despite me.
Yeah.
My oldest, yeah, when it's like so, like I said, he's a Warriors fan. So like because we live in Phoenix, so like I watch a lot of Phoenix games and they're local, it's the local broadcasters. So he's like, they always glaze the Suns.
Yeah.
So it's like when we're watching the games, though, he cheers against it. I'm like, bro, you hate the Lakers just as much as I do. Why are you cheering for the Lakers? Like you should hate the Lakers more than you hate the Suns, but
Exactly.
does it just to drive me nuts. I
Yeah,
know
dude.
that's James. It's funny you say that too about like, the pressure to like answer some of these questions that we ask you. Cause I'm like, if I, pick a song for like, our Dads Who Mosh playlist,
Yeah.
and if I pick one that I second guess later on, it's fine. I can just put a new one on the next week. But it's like when we have
Yeah.
guests on, it's like,
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
it. We're gonna
Yeah.
judge you forever based on what you put here.
That's right.
It does
That's
it does
right.
feel like that, dude. It's like it's such a defining idea of just like do I pick an old song or a new song? And then like
I know.
and then even I had Jesse send me the list and I was looking through all of it. I was like, do I pick a song that I feel like fits on this list? Or like like or a song that's kind of a different, slice of the pie, So we'll see,
It's a
dude.
lot of
We'll see what we
pressure.
get to. Yeah.
It's a
That's
lot of
right. A lot of
pressure.
buildup.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Just know we'll be judging. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Speaking of homework, let's jump
Yes.
right into it.
Let's do it.
So this is our first segment. This has been really successful for us. This is really cool. I love learning bands this way. Excited to get one from you, James. This first segment, it's called Bands You Should Know. I give you a heads up ahead of time. This could be
Yeah.
a small band, big band,
Yeah.
underrated band, just someone you want to give a shout out to, someone you think deserves a little more attention that you want us to all put into our playlist. So,
Yeah, dude.
Nate, why don't we start with you? What's
Yeah.
your band?
Yeah, I switched mine up last minute too, because
saw that.
the band that I was going to do, I was like, they sound like this band. I was like, wait a second, I got to give this band a shout out because, like, most people I'm sure have heard them if you're, familiar with the scene at all. The band I picked this week is Scarab. Man, if you don't know this band already, though, like, what are you doing with your life? You have to listen to Scarab. The vocalist he was the vocalist for Year of the Knife for a while. But Scarab is just like what I love about them, and I think it's the same thing I love about, certain bands like No Cure and some of these other bands I talk about all the time, is it's like hardcore, but it's like heavier than
Mhm.
hardcore, kind of like those elements of grindcore. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the vocalist's voice. I wish I remembered his name. I feel bad because I was just looking him up earlier this morning. But his voice is just like the vocals are so heavy, like so punishing. He does this wild thing with his voice too, where he like shakes his head around like on the mic and it just sounds like this. Yeah, it just sounds like this tormented, like demonic, just like
I can
brutal.
hear it, but I can't do it.
Yes. Awesome. awesome sound with his voice, and it just, like, adds to the chaos of it. I love it. I was listening to, a podcast that Scott Vogel from Terror was doing, and someone asked him to list his top 5 current hardcore bands. He listed these guys in there. So it's like, it's good. If it's got the Vogel stamp of approval, these
For sure.
guys
Yeah,
are good.
legit.
And yeah, honestly, between these guys and No Cure, both of those bands have to make up like 95% of what I listen to, right now. So yeah, if you like No Cure, even like, Missing Link, it was hard to like pair bands with these guys because it's like they're
Yeah.
heavy, but they don't necessarily sound exactly like anybody else out there. But there's some really heavy slammy parts in it, like in Missing Link. Killing Pace is a band we've talked about here before. But Scarab. So I've got my fingers crossed that Scarab's gonna play at Sound and Fury, or at least go on tour and come somewhere near the valley here, because I would love they're on my list right now of a band that I have yet to see live that I need to see them someday. So go check out Scarab if you haven't listened to Scarab yet.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That, like you said, the noise that he makes with his throat, voice, whatever, it's wild. It's insane. It's unlike
So
anything
cool.
else. Super cool. All right, I'll jump in here. I am continuing. I don't know what's going on with me. Maybe I've got something I got to work out in my life, but
Yeah,
I
you
am
good, bro? No.
still. Yeah, I don't know, but I am on
Yeah.
a beatdown kick. Like I can't stop listening to beatdown. So last week, one of the weeks I talked about Knuckle Sandwich. This
Mhm.
band kind of did a collab with Knuckle Sandwich. It's called Body Shot. So this would be like your Pacific Northwest of beatdown. You got Tsunami from the Bay Area and Knuckle Sandwich down here in Southern California. Body Shot represents Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Portland. I think they're kind of like from all over up there. But just another nasty beatdown band, just crowd killing, just get in there, run through a wall. They're just so much fun. They're really new. They seem pretty small right now. They don't have an album yet. They've got an EP. They've got
Mhm.
some collaboration. But if you like bands like Tsunami, Mongrel, maybe like Speed, like hardcore, but it's just go punch somebody and like jump off a stage. It's just so much fun. Great for the
Awesome.
gym too. I'm hitting PRs listening to these guys. So just
Yes.
fires you up. I
They're
love
just
it.
pushing you, dude.
Yes. So great. Dude,
Absolutely.
I love that it's Northwest hardcore too, because now I'm like trying to think through like, do I know any like like I feel like the Northwest, like the Pacific Northwest doesn't get enough love. I know they're a bit more mainstream, but who is it? Oh no, no. Dying Wish. Dying Wish is like from Portland.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
I gotta yeah, that but I don't know a lot of like Pacific Northwest bands.
No, I did the same thing where they how these like hardcore bands, they always call out where they're
Yep.
from. That's like
Yeah.
very popular right now. Midwest hardcore, or
Yep.
or whatever. And these guys are like very vocal about like Northwest hardcore. And I did the
Yeah.
same thing. I was like, I can't think of another band.
Yeah.
It's like known for like very grungy up there,
Of
obviously.
course.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was kind of cool. I have a buddy up in Seattle. I was like, you ever heard of these guys? And
That's
he
cool.
hadn't,
I
but
know,
yeah,
Ingrown is from Idaho. That's like Idaho and
right.
Montana. Everyone's like, what is it? What are they, the
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest? Do they
Yeah.
count as that? Because I would just always think it'd be so funny if like a hardcore band out of Montana got really big, like Montana
Yeah.
hardcore. Like that'd be the funniest call out in a show.
I'm out on a buffalo.
Yeah,
Damn, dude.
yeah, right. Exactly.
Honestly, it'd be so sick though.
That's not
All
a
right,
bad
James, what
idea.
do you got for us? Hit us with something good.
All right,
We're
dudes.
judging.
Yeah, judge harshly. No, I was funny because I was listening to like combing through all this stuff that I think are like my favorite things. And so much of like my taste and things that I loved were like those early, like kind of mid aughts, like 2005 to 2010.
Yes.
I think my favorite, I loved early Norma Jean. I still love Norma Jean, but I like loved early Norma Jean. And then I realized it's just I love Josh Scoggin. And so like I love the Chariot, I loved 6'8" and like 68 and like yeah, so I wanted to share with you, maybe you guys know them, but this band is called Pipe Bomb. Pipe Bomb is
Yes.
like a solo. He's like a band, but it's just one dude. And he kind of makes the whole thing. But like as a like diehard Chariot fan. He's got a sound that's like very reminiscent of this. Just finished his first album. It's called Hellhole. And it's so fun and chaotic and like just like fun, like sour note guitars. And yeah, I think he's also, it's just like the vocals um are so like metalcore-y. I think that's just like, as I again like look through things and I'm like, what are the songs I love? And so much of it is metalcore stuff. And so yeah, he's a ton of fun. Just put out an album. I know he's got like records of it, that like you can buy and stuff. And so he's a like fun solo creator guy. I think he's got like a band he's trying to put together to be able to tour around. It's from New Jersey. But super, super fun. If you're a fan of The Chariot, if you're a fan of kind of that like early 2000s, like metalcore chaos sound, very much kind of fits into that realm, which is I love. And so I was like, yeah, dude, I'm in on some pipe bomb.
That's awesome.
That
We,
is awesome.
I feel like there's something to this band. We gotta get him on the pod at some point, because we actually we gave we gave him a shout out a while back too, just because it's cool, man.
It's
The
fun.
Was
whole,
just
like yeah,
I was just gonna say, Nate, who's also diehard Chariot fan,
same
has a
thing.
Yeah.
Chariot
Yep,
tattoo, loves
yep,
Norma Jean,
Yeah.
also loves Pipe Bomb, and like sent
Yeah.
yep,
me like off the pod too. Was like, hey, have you ever heard of this guy? He's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
he sounds just like this early 2000s metalcore.
Yeah,
So
dude.
yep.
there must be something to it for sure.
Yeah.
There is, yeah. Well, and it's cool. Like, I love the fact that like he's able to go on tour. There's a cool like him. There's a few with like the Chapel Fire is another just like single like one
Yeah.
dude that
Solo
makes
creator guy.
music. Yeah, yeah. And I think that guy is actually on the Pipe Bomb album, one of the songs on Hellhole. He does guest vocals. I mean, it's a cool thing. I think that's like the hardcore scene is just like changing. And like there's this cool movement on social media with people that are just like, I just like this music. I don't have
Yeah.
connections to the music
Yeah.
industry, so I'm just gonna do all of this on my own. And
Yeah,
then they
dude.
support each other, which is awesome. I think that
Yeah.
like keeps the heart of hardcore beating, in this
Well, it's fun. I think
world of
about
social
like
media.
this is super fun to just see like because even though we live like, Jesse and I live in the same state, but Nate, you live in different, like, but thinking about like how do you build a band without like having a lot of those
Yeah,
connections and stuff, and
yeah,
and so it's cool to see like the internet used in that way of like, hey, I'm gonna just put stuff out, and obviously this guy's very talented. He can play, and create the whole thing, but then opens the door for people to get connected to him to like form kind of a full band.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think like what we're seeing, and this kind of maybe leads into one of these other topics that we have here. Is, like hardcore, and we talk a lot about like how it's growing, how you've got these massive hardcore bands with
Yeah,
huge followings that are, being nominated for Grammys. It's not like,
yeah, it's
Grammys are no
crazy.
longer just like, oh, Metallica, Anthrax,
Yeah,
like Megadeth. Well,
yeah,
these bands that, it's the only people that the Grammy people know, like, Turnstile, Knocked
yeah,
Loose,
Yeah.
Spirit Box. These bands that are like actually heavy are being nominated for Grammys. So it's like you've got that one end of the spectrum. But on the other end of the spectrum, we still have like this very DIY,
yeah.
small, like, local scene supporting each other. That is still very much alive in the hardcore scene. Um, Jesse, you put this question on here, which I think is great. Is it still hardcore if the tickets are like $60 plus fees? And I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that, like especially with like the ticket prices nowadays. I've got some thoughts on
Yeah.
it, but I'm curious to see like what you guys think about all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
I
for it,
was
James.
I was gonna say like Jess and I just had this conversation. We were talking about the Poison the Well show, like and just the cost on that. And I went to the 20th anniversary of the He Is Legend album. And I was like looking at tickets because I was like, well, how much is it going to be? And it's like $30. So I was like, okay. But I had this process in my head before it came up of like, okay, if this ticket is $50 or $60, like, am I going to go, drive down to see this? But it is interesting to see like, yeah, how that's grown. I think it's different. I think right now it's funny to like the mentality of it, right? Because like I think if you think about going to shows as like a teenager and like a young 20 something, like those prices would have been like, this is out of my range, dude. And like as an
Yeah.
adult, it still feel it's like it's funnier to like justify now. Feels like an old man. Like, do I need to go to this concert and run around? But like it feels like it's kind of keeping up with things moving. But it is interesting, just the shock of the system from having gone to shows for so long that were
Mhm.
$5, and like,
Yep.
oh yeah, it's $10 at the door, and like, all right, this is cool. To
Yeah.
now thinking about like it being a pretty significant jump.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I almost like I feel like I judge how excited I am for a show based on how cheap the tickets are. It's like I'm at the point now where and I mean there's still some bands that I'll go see, that are big, bigger names
Yeah,
and they've got smaller bands on the ticket,
yeah,
that I'm a little bit more excited for, but yeah, the Poison the Well one confuses me because it's like I get Poison the Well are like legendary.
yes.
Converge is legendary. Um, but I mean, like $50 seems crazy to me for that show. Yeah, I don't know.
I hear you, dude.
Blame Ticketmaster.
And I
Like
think that's
I
part of it.
I
Yeah,
do. I seriously blame Ticketmaster. They ruin everything.
Yep.
It's like private equity or whatever. But I know. I say this as someone who just bought a very expensive boat tour
Yeah,
cruise,
yeah.
but like I the more like big festivals I go to, like the more I love just going down to Brick by Brick and seeing like a band that's been grinding for 20
hmm
years and never made it and is
hmm
Yeah.
opened by like 3 local
yeah,
bands in San Diego. I that's my favorite. Some of my favorite shows have been somebody texts me and they're like, "Hey, want to go to this show for $10? It's tomorrow." And you're like, yes, like
yes,
it's an easy yes. Instead of the, okay, I'm like in the queue for Ticketmaster to
Mhm.
yeah,
try to get these tickets to make sure, like, I don't know. It's just,
yeah,
yeah, I think like the core of the question, like, is it still hardcore if it's $60? Like, I don't think so. I mean, I think what's hardcore is the local venues.
hmm
I don't think it's hardcore if there's a barrier up front.
I
I
know,
think
dude.
Yeah,
it's I think
That
that's
does
what
is a
what
bummer.
the spirit of it is, right?
Yes.
Is
yeah. I so this is interesting. And I think, yeah, James, to your point too, like that, we're used to going to these shows, growing up for like
Yeah.
$5. Like I went,
Yeah.
I used to drive to Spokane, Washington, and I'd go watch like, Life Ruiner. And the price of admission was I had to get coffee at the coffee
Yes.
shop that this
Yeah.
garage was attached
Right.
to. Um, but yeah, like the whole barrier thing, and I was watching this video from Johnny Grimes. We always go back to Furnace Fest, and what's going on with Furnace Fest. He posted something about this last year at Furnace Fest that we were all at,
Mhm.
and he said every single one of the headliners required a barrier, and like
No way.
Jimmy Eat World, I get.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't
Dropkick
realize that.
Murphys I get. Knocked Loose surprises me because,
Yeah.
like, very specifically, Brian from Knocked Loose said something during the set. He's like, "There's a barrier here. That is not ideal for us," all of this stuff. But then to find out that they required the barrier,
Yeah.
I'm like, huh, okay, Knocked Loose. All right. What's going on here,
Yeah.
guys? So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird, yeah, and maybe that's just, as I don't wanna be the old man that's like, "Oh, back in my day, we
Wait.
could pay $5 and, break my
Yeah.
leg jumping off of the stage," but at the same time, it's like, that's still what, like, makes me feel
Yes.
alive and makes me
Yes.
love the scene is going to shows like that still,
Yeah.
so I'm glad that that still exists even though the other end of the hardcore spectrum
Yeah, it's
is
just grown. It's stretched for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I
yeah,
think about like so many of the shows I went to as like a high school kid in like early 20s. Like there was like a church in our town that like hosted all these hardcore bands that like get kids to come to youth group. And they're
Yeah,
like, we're gonna host
yeah,
exactly.
this band. And I
yeah,
was like, sweet, dude, I'm in. And
yeah,
it was like either on the floor or it was like a 1 foot like quote stage.
Exactly.
And it was just mania. And and seeing like small bands like that, and then seeing big bands that like, or bigger bands, but they would still come through and play these like tiny spaces that would pack out, and just it is like such a unique experience. Like the lack of the barrier, the in a lot of sense, like the lack of safety in the room, just like it's just so overfull in here. I saw like I remember seeing As I Lay Dying in like a tiny church room, and there was like 300 people in a room that maybe sat like 75, and it was
Yeah,
just nuts. And like, but it was so fun, and like there was just something
exactly.
super special about that experience that is really different. I think, like, to the idea of like these big shows and art, the hardcore is such a unique experience of a concert, that is of a show that's different than, just like a performance. When you're going to watch, like a pop artist or something, you're like, I want to watch you sing the songs and kind of sing along, versus like the idea that like we're all kind of doing this together.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
and
And even like, let's be honest, like the audio quality, like you can go listen on some like Bose headphones and
Hmm.
like get a better experience. It's
Right.
like kind of like going to a football game versus like watching it on TV. It's like you're there for this like community and
Yes.
like the
For the
environment
energy.
and
Yeah.
the energy. Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. Well, and I think too, if like, because I know there's a lot of people that are just now getting into hardcore because of bands like Turnstile or
Yes.
even Knocked Loose and stuff like that. I think my message for those people too is like, that's awesome. But now, like, go see the other end too. Like,
Yeah.
go pay, you know, $100 or whatever to go see like this big festival or whatever it is. But then it's like, then go pay $10 to go see your local, you know. And I think
For
that's
sure.
maybe that's the thing. It's like, I want you to be able to do both. If
Hmm.
you like hardcore, but only at these like big produced concerts, but you're like, oh, I don't want to go to like the little local show. Then I'm like, you got to figure it out. I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know if you completely understand it yet. But I don't. It's just such a weird thing, man. It's like I don't want to gatekeep either. Like,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
listen to
totally.
it if you want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess that's like my biggest encouragement for people that are just getting into it. It's like, go to the little shows too, like,
Yeah.
because
It's a
that's where all
totally
these
different
bands,
experience.
yeah, Knocked Loose, Turnstile, all these guys, they started off playing in basements with 20
Mhm.
people, crowd killing, like, go check out these smaller bands too. So
Well, I think that's a really good segue because if you are new to the hardcore and you want a good recommendation, there's a really a Terror just put out their brand new album. And you want to talk
Hmm.
about guys who have
yes.
like stayed really true to who they are and like no barrier and like true hardcore shows while still just like dominating. So there's been a ton of hype around this album. They've been putting out these singles that are just all so good. Album came out yesterday. Also, Nate, I don't know if you saw this. They put out this like 20-minute documentary. It's free, it's on YouTube, but
Yes. I
it's
haven't
them.
watched it, but
Yeah, you gotta go check it out. I put it on yesterday kind of in the background, and, like, they're just talking about their band and how long each of them have been in the band, what it's been like traveling. Scott talks about his, like, sobriety journey and what that's been like, and, just a really cool get to, like, kinda get to know the guys behind the music, and, man, you wanna talk about staying true to who they are, their sound, it's Terror, while
yeah,
also still killing it, not selling out. It's just
Yeah.
really cool to see.
Yeah.
So, golden
man.
standard, I think.
Seriously. Listening to that album, so it was midnight somewhere, so at like midnight on the East Coast, so 9 o'clock, that album dropped and I got this notification on my phone and I listened, just had it like I was out sitting on the couch that night after the kids went to bed. And I just kind of had it playing. I love Terror so much, man. Like, and especially because like they were also one of those first bands that as I was starting to discover hardcore, Terror was one of those first bands. One of those bands I saw at a tiny venue in
Hmm.
Spokane, Washington, no barrier. And it's just like to stay so consistent like they have over the years, it's so awesome, man. And it's just like it's like they don't ever plan on changing. It's like that they're just
Yeah.
gonna keep doing their thing. And yeah, I haven't watched that documentary, but I was listening to a podcast from Death Wish Records. It was Jacob Bannon from Converge was talking with Scott Vogel from Terror, and then, like the whole thing was them just reminiscing about old shows and old bands, and it was such a trip down memory lane. And I was like, dude, this is like it's like my Steve Miller band. It's like my dad
Yeah.
always listened to Steve Miller band. That's
Yes.
what
Mine
Terror.
too.
That's what we're gonna be listening to in like the retirement home. Like the nurses are gonna like have to put on our records and we're gonna be like, singing Keepers of the Faith with no
That's
teeth
right,
in
dude.
our heads left anymore.
Yeah.
But bro,
It'll be great.
it's it's so great. Yeah. And that album is just
It's
it's
so
such a good
good.
album, man. It's like I'm like, "Is this the best Terror album that's come out?" Because
I
it's
felt the
good,
same
man.
way.
It's
Like, I don't
Dude,
good.
I don't think you can go that far, but it's like, there was a non-skipper. I was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
this is,"
yeah,
super
yep,
good.
yep. I one of the things I love with Terror too is like, because obviously, like, originated in Buffalo, New York, so it's like you've got the whole East Coast hardcore influence,
hmm
but then, like, Vogel and, like, a lot of the guys are now in Los Angeles, so it's kinda that, like, merging together of, like, East Coast and West Coast. It's just how can you not like Terror, man? I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. All right, sticking with, hardcore news, there was a post from Lambgoat this week that felt cryptic. I don't know. It says that Furnace Fest 2026 is still happening according to festival organizers. We know it got sold. We don't know
Yeah,
to who.
yeah.
Um, and it said that Monster Energy is like confirmed going to be a sponsor or something, which I guess they've been a sponsor in the past. So that doesn't really seem like news. It just seems like weird timing. They come out and say, like, oh, yeah, we're still having it. So I guess my question for you guys, like, if they come out next week and they say, "Hey, we're having Furnace Fest." Would you go? Is it have you like lost interest? I guess what would it take for you to go, to want to go? What are your thoughts on Furnace Fest?
Whoa. I mean, I think one, it was an all-time experience for sure. Like I think thinking about it as, when Furnace Fest first happened, I was like a middle schooler coming into high school. And so
Mm,
hearing about, these kind of festivals on the other side of the country and being like a high school kid that could never make it there was just like, dang, that would be
yeah.
so cool. And so yeah, getting to go last year was just like it was such a cool moment for the angsty teen in me of like, dude, I always wanted to be here and now I'm here and it's off and it was awesome. Like it was super fun. Um I think like the venue's so good. Um Obviously like, we could discuss the barriers at the main stage and then the bands that they put on that stage and like did that all make sense. But I think overall the experience of it is so fun. um and the bands that we got to see last year were all time, and so um I would be uh conservatively excited
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the potential, because
Yeah.
it just is like it's such a like iconic place and festival, and at least thus far they've done such a good job at putting together like just fun lineups, like fun like old stuff and new stuff, and finding cool like just mixes of bands to participate.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'm dubious. Like, I because, when you kinda track everything that's been going on, obviously, they were bought out, and I think, to be bought out, whoever bought them out has gotta be pretty big. I would assume they've got a lot of money. So that to me, going back to like our previous conversation, the hardcore kid in me is like, how
Yeah.
commercial are you? If you've got enough money to do this, and it's like, are you going to respect the, the lore of Furnace Fest? So I don't know. I think for me, like if I was gonna be like, oh man, like, fly to LA to do Sound and Fury in August, come back, turn around, come back, fly to Birmingham to do Furnace Fest in like September, October. I think for me it would have to be like a shed focused festival.
Like
And that's
all
even
in.
why
Yeah.
I remember thinking that last year going is like, man, if you just did like 1 or 2 days in the
hmm
shed, I would
hmm
still pay the same amount of money because I didn't spend a lot of
For
time
sure.
watching like the main stage. Like we watched Knocked Loose, watched Converge. I think that last day there were a lot of really solid bands on the
Yeah.
main stage. Um, but yeah, a lot part of me is like, I don't know. But then it's like if
Yeah.
it's shed focused, then what are they going to have that like a Hellfest or a Sound and Fury or FYA doesn't have anyways?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's like, why not go to one of those?
Yeah.
I know. I hate to be that guy, but it was like the year before was like very shed focused. There
Yeah.
was no barrier at the main stage, and the like closers each night was Under Oath, which big enough, heavy enough, like it meets all those. Devil Wears Prada and August Burns Red. Like it was just like ideal dream 3-night closer.
Right.
It was very shed focused. There was like I don't know. There was a lot of there was a lot more
Yeah.
conflicts of like I don't know who to go see because both of these
Mhm.
bands, this last year we went. It was awesome. Not trying to like hate on it, but it was like well, I was like, oh yeah, like we're just gonna go to the shed all day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know Josh Brolin was at that one 2 years ago? Josh Brolin, that the actor who plays
The actor?
Thanos, like, yeah. Did you know
Oh
he was
no,
at that Furnace Fest that you were at, Jesse?
no,
I
I had
didn't I
no
was
idea.
another post that Johnny Grimes did. He's friends with Toby Morse from H2O, and yeah,
Okay.
he talked about Johnny talked about how he, like, looked up and, like, he was like, Thanos was there on stage. I had no idea, so
That's
crazy.
awesome.
Yeah, who knows, man? Who knows what's gonna happen with Furnace Fest?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's keep going down our news.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a funny one. Did you see or have you heard this new single by Fred Durst and MGK?
I haven't seen it. No.
It- it- uh,
Let's go,
okay,
dude.
you want to talk about guilty pleasure songs that we talked
There
about
you go.
last week? It's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of good. I kind of like
yeah.
new metal. Okay,
Okay,
it's kind of good.
okay.
Go check it out. Fred Durst is hilarious too. He's like a really
Yeah,
good
yeah.
follow on social media. So
Okay. I got there's a special place in my heart for new metal for
yeah.
sure, so
Yeah.
I
All
love
right,
it.
Nate, tell me about Bring Me the
Okay.
Horizon.
Okay. Yeah. So Bring Me the Horizon, this has been the big deal, in Bring Me the Horizons world. They announced that they were going to re record Count Your Blessings. And so, here we go. Get back to the whole topic like bands that started off sounding one way, changed their sound over the years and got much bigger for it. Count Your Blessings has always been that one where like the really die hard Bring Me the Horizon fans are like, play Count Your Blessings.
Yeah.
Um, this was but even what's funny is, like, even when this album came out, I remember, like, even this album was really polarizing. There were people that, like, loved it. It was definitely more of, like, a deathcore,
Mhm.
like, really heavy pig squeals kind of a thing, and that's really what launched them. They got really popular from this album, and then that went into, like, their what was it? Suicide Season album, which started to take a turn, and, they started to lose fans, but gain other ones.
Mhm.
Um, I know people that loved this album. I know people that hated this album. Like they saw the guys from Bring Me the Horizon. They all looked like these, scrawny scene kids with like the flat iron hair, and they were playing this heavy music, and people were like, "This is stupid. These guys
Yeah.
suck." Um, and so now that's like the big thing. And so I think I got to respect Bring Me the Horizon for re-recording it. And they're going to go on this, I think, pretty short tour, but they're going to play the whole thing in its entirety. I mean, it's like no clean vocals whatsoever. And that's all Bring Me the Horizon is anymore, is like clean vocals with like, maybe a breakdown in the bridge or something like that. But so it's like I gotta respect them for going back and doing that. Whether or not, anybody actually liked that album, or some people hate it, some people love it, good on Bring Me the Horizon, I guess, for going back to their roots and at least celebrating that, album that I think brought them to where they are now for sure.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of thoughts about it. I don't know. They've like I don't know. I don't know what to think about them.
I think
Yeah.
it's interesting that like as you're saying, like as bands kind of change sounds, like what do they do with their old like discography of like
Yeah.
are we still this band that wrote this even though we've kind of gone a different way? Um and it is interesting, it was like I think about when Under Oath kind of transitioned with Spencer, and like did they still go back and play some of the stuff with Dallas, and just like it just felt different. It was like this isn't really who you guys are anymore. And it was, I remember when They're Only Chasing Safety came out, and like all these girls at my school liked it, and I was like, you guys don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
and it was like
Yeah.
upsetting to me, these people that like this band, that I was like, this isn't really who this band is. But there's like but this is who they are now. And so that it is an interesting thing as a fan when you walk through that. And like, I think I have since relented, and I liked the Under Oath albums later, but it was just different. But then also, Dallas went on to do Mailing the Sons of Disaster. So I was like, I'm okay now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but it's funny to like to consider those things, and like what do you do with these old albums as the band changes? and people kind of fall in love with the band that they start listening to, and like how that affects their fandom.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny how, like, possessive we get of these bands. You know, it's like,
It
"This is
is.
my
Yeah.
band. Don't
Yeah,
talk about them. This is my band," you
this is
know?
my band. You don't know them.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Exactly. Yeah, so funny. Um, awesome. Well, should we hit new music this week? I mean, we've talked about Terror already, which,
Yeah. There was a new Balmora single that came
yeah,
out. I'm such a big fan of anything they put out. So just fun, metalcore, revival
yeah,
core, just has that old sound that we love. So yeah, go check
yeah.
it out. It's another good one.
Yeah, and they're going on tour. They announced a tour, I think, with
I
that new
saw that.
album. So, they're coming through town. I think they're playing the Underground here, so I may have to try to get tickets for that one for sure when they come through.
I didn't see any local. It looked like they were doing a lot of East Coast stuff. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, yeah. The new Boundaries single, "Death Will Follow Me," came out today. Um, I mean, you guys know, I love
Yeah,
Boundaries. You
yeah.
know, it's funny because like a month ago or so, we were talking about how there was this whole subreddit thread about Boundaries, and they had the one single that came out, and they're like, "Where's the low end? Why does this sound so bad?" And then I think Boundaries re-released it and like changed the edit. At least
Did
that
they
was like,
really?
the rumor. Um, but if they didn't, it's almost like they took all those comments really seriously. This one's just like heavy. The low end is
Yeah.
there. I mean, Boundaries does like the clean vocals thing, which I know, hardcore purists are like, I don't like that. But I can appreciate it because like they do it sparingly. It's not cliche. A lot of like metalcore bands that have clean vocals, it's just like, all right, we've heard this before. You don't have to have a really high voice. You could just have a regular voice, kind
Yeah.
of a thing. But Boundaries does it really well. I mean, it's the I think the clean vocals sound cool, but, I think they pair it with, like, their heavy parts are just so heavy, like, just punishingly heavy. Matt's voice is just, like, such a cruel, angry sounding voice that I love it. So, the new one is cool. The new song is called "Death Will Follow Me." It's pretty brutal, so go check that one out today for sure.
Yeah. All right, I love it. So, James, another thing we do here on our podcast every week, especially when we have dads on, it's a hardcore podcast. We like to talk about like hardcore things in life. And so, as a dad, as I
Yeah.
know you around town, as a great dad, one of the questions that I wanted to talk about today was this idea of like, how can you raise a resilient or like a tough kid
Hmm.
without just being like a a total jerk dad.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
how do you and I think there's like this kind of conversation right now, at least in the dad world of like, well, when I was a kid, my dad would
Hmm.
just, we had to do these hard things and just like
Yeah.
work until night and my dad would beat me and that's what made me the man I am
Yeah.
today.
Totally. Yeah.
And then like the opposite, it like swung the other way where it's like, no, I don't say no to my kids and I
Yeah.
don't like and so I think like anything, there's somewhere in between. But I guess just
Yeah.
like very broad, open-ended question is like, how do we raise like tough, resilient kids without
Yeah.
being total jerks?
Yeah, dude. Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's, I remember listening to this podcast and they were talking about what, um, like determinations of success in kids. And one of the things that they like, the highest things that they rated was like a grit that like if a kid has grit, that's like the highest marker of their success rate like throughout their life. And so then the question is like, okay, well, how do you help them develop that, right? Because I think I think everybody's has a kid or has seen a kid that's just like a hard-headed kid, right? They're like wild, and you're like, yeah, you're just gonna learn by breaking your arm a bunch of times, and then and then like but you're kind of tough, and so that's kind of what it is. But if your kid is not like that, like how do we help them develop that, right? Help develop some perseverance. And so I think for me, certainly something I'm aware of. Like I've got a son and a daughter, and so kind of looking at both of them, and trying to build resilience into them in different ways through like kind of unique things. Like where my son, um, I think what we try to do is I try to include him in things that are maybe just a step above where his capabilities are. So in all sorts of things, right? So I'm the cook at our house. And so when we're making food, He knows how to make some things, but a lot of things that require, more knife work and more like intentional things like are just a little bit over where he's at as an 8-year old. But I like to include him in those things and allow him kind of a little bit of room in a relatively safe environment to kind of test his skills. I do jujitsu, and so I do a lot of physicality with him with both of my kids. But like, just like I want I want him to feel the end of his strength. I want him to feel like he can exert himself, and that and like have room for that, and that being okay. Like, hey, like, I do this thing with him when he's like real angry with me, which happens. It's a little boy, where I'm like, all right, dude, I put my hands up, and I just like you can swing away and push as hard as you can, or like push me as hard as you want, and like just let him exert himself in that way. That is like hey, this is like an okay space for you to use all the strength that you want, because like dad's like a safe place for that. And I think the other thing is in that same space of like having them do things that are kind of ahead of where they are, is just giving them room to do that. Like, I think the parental instinct is to like fly in and rescue them, because like it's a good instinct to not let your kids get hurt, or like, and it's a natural instinct I think to not let your kids struggle. Um, but I think what we've seen and learned is that like that that struggle is developmentally necessary for them to recognize that they can accomplish things that they think are harder than they think they can do, that they can push through and kind of persevere. And then there's a real like sense of accomplishment and satisfaction when they do that. And so that every time that we're able to kind of put those things in front of him, and for same thing with my daughter, put things in front of them that are challenging, um, and not like impossibly, where it's like, I'm not asking them, I'm like putting a Rubik's cube in front of them, like solve this, but like giving him something that is, maybe a level above where he is, but it's still, if he applies and he presses, he could do it. And that works in all kinds of things. Like, my wife and I like work out in our garage, and he's always like, can we do that? Can I work out with you? And like, I think he grabs a weight that he's comfortable. We have like little hand weights for him, but he'll grab something he's comfortable with. And I'll always ask, like encourage him, like, do you want to grab something a little heavier? Right. And just to the consistency of like, hey, let me just try to stretch you a little bit. Because I want you to understand that like, there's going to be things that are hard, and you have to know that you can endure them. And the way that
Yeah.
is by doing it, and by enduring them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No,
great,
that's good.
man.
That's great. Yeah. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, no, we were, last episode we were kind of talking about this idea how like so much in our culture now, it's like if something feels bad, it's like we want
Mhm.
to just fix it immediately. We got to get
Yeah.
rid of, this feels bad, feeling bad is bad. So we got to do whatever we can to fix it. And I think it's important that our kids learn that sometimes things feel bad, sometimes things are hard, sometimes things suck. And you kind of have to get through it. And I think our generation, at least the millennial generation, is interesting, right? Because like I think about my dad's dad, like my grandfather, he passed away years ago, but like he was a hard dude, man. And he was like had a temper. And
Hmm.
it's like you hear stories about, when my dad was growing up and his siblings, like, his dad is like abusive with things. And it's like,
Mhm.
then my dad is a dad and he's not that way, but it's like still like even my dad, I think like when I was growing up, dude, I just like I obeyed because like I was afraid. It's like you
Yeah.
don't want to make dad mad. My dad's the
Yeah.
biggest softy in the world now, which is so funny to like see him with grandkids and stuff like that. But then yeah, now we're like, how do you be tough without just being tough on your kids, without just
Yeah.
yelling at them, without
Yeah.
just like, yeah. And I think, I've got a teenager and then I've a 15-year-old and one that's going to be 13 in just a few months here, just a couple
Dang.
months. So yeah, like my 15-year-old, he's a swimmer. Swimming is his sport. And it's like there have been times where he has wanted to quit. He's like, I just
Hmm.
want to go play basketball with my friends. I don't want to do swimming. Swimming's all year. He's got to do it like 6 days a week now. Now he's got to do weightlifting and stuff like that. He's got to be there at 5 a.m. some days, which means like
Yeah.
I got to get him there at 5 a.m.
Mhm.
because he doesn't drive yet. And so, there's been times where he's wanted to give up. And I think sometimes you just have to say no. And I think like our generation, sometimes we swing so far from like maybe our parents who
Hmm.
just were like, no, you don't need to know
Never.
why.
Yeah.
We're just not going to let you do this. Now it's like we want our kids to like, be happy and feel loved and feel like they have a voice. But at the same time, there's still that responsibility where it's like, look, I know you want to play basketball, but it's like, this is what is best for you.
Yeah.
And, you see parents a lot that are just like, my kid's throwing a fit. I just want them to shut up. Here's the iPad or whatever,
Right.
or something like
Yeah.
that. But I think that what that ingrains in our kids is like, life is easy. All I have to do is throw a fit and I can get
Yeah.
whatever I want. And so it's
Yeah.
like with our kids, I just want so badly to just like ingrain, like, no, you got to put in work. Yes, you can get what you want, but you're going to have to work for it, and if you don't work for it, it's not going to be the same. I've got, I've mentioned a couple times on this podcast too. Like we've got a kid, my youngest has some special needs, and there's always that temptation to just be like, I'm going to pull you out of school. I'm just going to
Hmm.
put you in like, a certain like a specific class or a different school with different kids. But it's like, first of all, he doesn't want that because he wants to just like, live as normal of a life as he possibly can. But also, it's like, am I just like making it easier for you? It's like, I know school is
Yeah.
hard, but like,
Mm.
I'm going to pull you out, make it easier for you. And then it's like, what does that, and I'm not here to like tell every single parent,
No, for sure.
that has kids that, with special needs, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I don't know. It's like, then maybe I'm like on my soapbox right now too, but it's like, I see a lot of parents that will post stuff like, I feel so bad for my kid because they have this or they have that and we're really struggling. I'm just like, whatever, dude. Every kid has a struggle. Like
Hmm.
mine isn't any more special than anyone else's, the struggle that we have. It's like, you're just going to have to deal with it, buddy. Sorry. I know that sucks, but we're going to be there for you. And I think
Yeah.
that's it. I think instead of taking hard, painful things away from our kids, I think it's important as parents, as dads, like, you're going to have to go through this, but I'm going to be there with you every step of the
Yeah.
way. I'm going
Yeah.
to make sure that you get through it.
Yeah. Cool. Good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like a couple of things I pulled out of that is like soft failures. Like we're
Hmm.
we're a big fan in our house of soft failures so that you
Yeah.
can like prepare for those big failures
Yeah.
and like allowing them to go through some hard things that are like in a controlled environment so that like when they're grown and adult and like out of the house and they go through hard things, they've like
Yeah.
experienced that before. So
Yep.
yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that was good.
Well, we're getting a little close to time here. I want to make sure that we get to everybody's favorite segment. At least selfishly, it's my favorite segment. So, James, we are on a mission to build the world's greatest playlist on Spotify. Okay, we've got some great additions, and every week Nate and I add one song, and then
Yeah.
any guest that we have on adds a song. So, I gave you the homework ahead of time. Again, there will be judgment here.
Yeah.
So it has to be
We're
a good
taking
one.
notes. Yep.
Yes.
So I'll kick it off here. This week I went with another just one of my favorite songs. One of my favorite songs live too. This song is by Speed, The First Test. This is the song where they introduced the flute breakdown. If you've never seen this live, it is so cool. When
So
he
cool.
jumps out, like there's kind of this like groovy part. Everyone's just like kind of grooving right in the middle of this heavy hardcore song. He busts out a flute and just does the sickest flute breakdown in the middle of a hardcore show. If you've never seen it, you have to go check it out. It's just so cool. The song also just hits hard. It's just so cool. I think it's super unique. So I got to add that to the playlist. One of my favorite songs. Whenever it comes on, I turn that one up. The song itself
So
too is just
great.
like groovy, two-steppy, so much fun. So I love it.
Yeah, dude, Speed has figured out the groove, man. Like
Yeah.
some of their runs, dude, are just so fun to dance to. Um, awesome. So this one, I gotta give props to Jesse for this one. I put Inflict My Will by Contention is going on the playlist this week. When I last year I told Jesse, like, okay, I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going to Furnace Fest. I saw Contention on the playlist. At that point, I had never heard Contention. I know you had seen him at Sound and Fury. You were already turned on to him. And so you were like, you gotta listen to Contention. And I kept like putting on, like such and such, whatever radio station on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And every time like a song would come on, I'm like, oh, this is really good. And I'd look at who it was Contention. Contention is just like they're killing it right now. They're so fun live, and Inflict My Will, like that, at the very end of the song, I mean, it's the perfect pile up, like
Yes.
rush the stage. It's so fun. Inflict My Will by Contention is my choice this week. It's just such a solid song.
So
All right,
good. So
dudes.
glad that one's on the list. All right, James, what do you got? I'm excited.
Dude, so I mean, like I said, it was a time, right? And I was actually listening to you guys this last episode when I guess we're talking with Marco. And I was like, I think I'm going to separate art from artist. um, and
Okay.
because like my all-time favorite band, at least top three all-time favorite bands, and they were like a band local to my area as a teenager and as a like young 20s guy. Absolutely loved them. Was absolutely devastated over all the stuff that happened with them.
No.
But it is 94 hours from the album Frail Words Collapse by As I Lay Dying. And I think the first time I heard like the the bass like the bass pedal breakdown of that song, like my brain exploded. And I think I was oh man, I think I was like in eighth grade, and I was just like, what is even happening right now? And then I just I got to meet all these dudes, and like it was such a pivotal like formational thing for me from like 17 to like 22, which is hard to say now. And but like I loved it, and it was such a defining sound for what brought me into hardcore and
Yeah.
metalcore and all that stuff. And so love the song 94 Hours. I think it's one that it goes up there kind of on like the Mount Rushmore of metalcore songs. And so that's what I am going to humbly offer on the altar of this podcast for the playlist.
That's fair. That's fair. And you're not wrong. Like that's so funny you say that because I remember hearing that, that double kick part in 94 hours. And I don't remember who I was with, but it was just like everybody and nobody I knew like at school or anything, like, listen to that same music. I'm like, you have to hear this. You have to hear this. This is wild. And nobody was into it. But
Yeah.
dude, I'm glad. I'm glad to know you met those guys and you're still breathing. So.
Dude, it's funny because they all are like most of the guys are still local.
Yeah.
Mm,
And it was just like it was a while, I became really good friends with a buddy that was the guitar player for them right before Fair Words Collapse came out, and he became a really good friend. And he was obviously still friends with all these guys. And I remember meeting them with like through him, like just at random we'd be out getting food. And it was like I remember the first time we went to Jordan's house, Jordan Mancino, the drummer, and we like pulled up, and he was like, "Hey, you're gonna be cool, right?" And I was just like, "Yeah, dude, like for sure." But like I think I was 19, and I just was like coming out of my skin of like, I worship this dude, and I'm about to walk into his
Yeah.
house
yeah.
Yeah.
and just be cool, and like yeah, since met all the guys, right, and had different experiences with that, but it was yeah, like I said, I think especially because they were from like North County, and like and again seeing them at these like tiny little venues around where we live, and then to see them explode and become gigantic was just like such a cool thing that like, oh, we made it out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously the coming apart of that was equally brutal.
Yes.
But yeah.
Hey, we've said it here. You can always fly to Russia and still see As I Lay Dying.
And still see them. That's true, dude.
That's right. No, it's a solid choice. That's a good song. Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, we got some shows coming up. Um, May 2nd, if you are in the Phoenix or Mesa area, myself and a couple other dads are going to be going to see Shadow of Intent and Angel Maker. That's going to be at the Nile Theater May 2nd. So if you're around, want to come hang out. It was cool. The last show, I went to, ran into some people that, knew the podcast. So if you're there, want to come say hi, come say hey.
Super cool. Yeah, my next show coming up May 8th up in Pomona. Get to see Terror, Pain of Truth, End It, Start Today. So excited for that show. It happens to fall on Mother's Day weekend, so did not know about that ahead of time. So I got to make up for it. Good thing Mother's Day is on a Sunday, but
There you go.
Yeah.
but if any of you are brave enough to join me, I'll be up at that show. I think it's sold out, but I don't know what aftermarket looks like.
Yeah. 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 Right. Exactly. Awesome. Well,
Sweet.
James, thanks for hanging out, man.
Guys, thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
All right. Peace.